friends, it's Mari here for Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to be creating this sweet little A2 size top folding card for you today, and I'm going to be using this really beautiful background stamp here. This is the Falling Snow background stamp, which is just so gorgeous. And I'm also going to be using one of the Lovely Layers series die sets. This is the Anemone set. And I'm going to use these kind of in a little bit of an unexpected way. I kind of wanted to go with a wintry kind of a color scheme. So I've chosen some aqua cardstock, and I'm also going to be using, or I did use, the A2 double stitched frames to die cut out my card front here. So I'm going to start off by doing some heat embossing on this aqua paper. I have the paper in my MISTI. I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool on there because I am going to do some heat embossing. I have actually inked up that background stamp with my embossing ink, and I'm just getting that impression onto the paper. When I've got that all inked up, I'm going to add some white embossing powder over top of that embossing ink. And now I'm going to take my heat tool and melt that, and I'm going to end up with just all of these really pretty white snowflakes on this lovely aqua background. Now I'm taking some speckled egg oxide ink and my Honeybee Stamps blending tool. And I'm just going to blend this color over top of the aqua. I think it just adds some really nice depth to this colored cardstock. So I'm just adding that over top of the snowflakes and adding this to the bottom. And then to the top, I'm going to add some evergreen bough so that I have kind of like a little bit of a darker color that's going to be at the top of my card. And then that lighter, softer speckled egg at the bottom. I just like the contrast of those two colors together. I think they look really lovely on this cardstock. And there you can see that's all finished. I did take a cloth and wipe the ink off of the embossed snowflakes so that they are nice and bright white. Now I've die cut out all of the anemone pieces from the Lovely Layers anemone die set, and I'm going to add a little bit of ink blending to the edges of these white floral bits. And I really wanted the white flower to pop off of the back of this snowy background. So I'm not going to add too much color to these anemone pieces, just a little bit. And I'm just adding the same colors that I've used in my background. So again, I'm using the speckled egg and the evergreen bough, and I'm using one of the detailed blending brushes from Honeybee Stamps. I love that Honeybee has not just larger blending brushes, but they also have a fine detail set. That's really great. And I've now purchased enough of these brushes that I have a set. I'm trying to build them up so that I have a set just for the oxides and then another set just for dye inks. And I'm getting pretty close to having a full set for both types of inks. So that is good. So I'm just going ahead here and I'm adding ink to all of the different layers of the Lovely Layers anemone dies. And like I said, I cut these all from white, and I'm adding those two colors, and I'm also adding a little bit of pine needles in. It's a little bit darker than the speckled egg and the evergreen bough. I'm using the evergreen bough for the leaves that are cut from those dies from the Lovely Layers set. And again, you can just see me using the detailed brushes from Honeybee. These are fantastic. I really love this little teeny tiny one for small areas. It just works great. Now this is the second layer. You can see that I've added ink now to all of the different layers of my die cut pieces. And I'm going to stick these together with a little bit of foam adhesive. So you see I've got some foam adhesive on there, and I'm going to add foam adhesive between each one of the different layers, except for, I think, maybe a couple of the teeny tiny layers. Maybe I don't put foam adhesive between all of those. I think I use some glue dots here, so I'll show you that when I get to that point. But these main top three layers, or the bottom layer and the next two, are definitely separated by foam. That gives them lots of really nice dimensional detail for your card front. So I'm going to add this piece on, and we'll just watch and see. I can't remember if I added this one with foam or if I added it with, I actually did add that with some foam adhesive, so it's actually going to pop up quite nicely on the background there. And now I'm going to add the next two little pieces on with a little bit of glue dots, and so that gives a little bit more dimension, but not quite as much as a piece of foam adhesive. And then I'm going to add this last little piece here, and I'm just going to leave this topping piece just completely white. I think it looks really pretty on that aqua, and just going to add that on with some glue dots as well to add just the tiniest little bit of dimension. And I'm going to put the little bud together in exactly the same way. I'll use a little bit of foam adhesive between some of the layers, and then so the two layers on top of the bud will have foam adhesive on them, and then the little leafy kind of part on that stem there just has some glue dots. So there you can just see I've just added a small amount of color to the little buds as well, just to keep that again, the focus on the white with just a tiny little accent of those colors. I think that just looks really pretty. And I'm just getting some adhesive on the back of that little bud piece there. And I'm just going to add that on. And then, of course, I will add that little piece onto the leafy area there as well. And I love that you can cut these buds as many times as you want. You could have 2 or 3 buds on your anemone if you wanted. You could do a project and just use the buds and not use the large flower. You can use these in so many different ways. You can use this Lovely Layers die set in combination with some of the other Lovely Layers and so on. They are just so fantastic, these Lovely Layers die sets. I really love them. They're one of my favorite types of dies at Honeybee Designs. They are really super fun to create with. So there you can just see I've got a glue dot on that little leafy piece there on the bud, and those are all ready to go. So I'm just going to show you how pretty these look on that aqua background. I think it just is gorgeous. And I just kind of wanted this idea of, this really pretty flower with the snow falling on it. And I just thought this was just kind of like a little bit of a non-traditional looking holiday card. I think it's super pretty. So here you can just see I'm getting a little bit of an idea of how I want my bits to be placed on the card. And I wanted the sentiment in the top right hand area there. So that was why I was kind of pushing things down towards the bottom. This is my A2 size top folding card base that I'm going to be placing this card front onto. And there you can just see, I believe at this point I have everything stuck down. I'm going to add some white splatter. That's just going to add some really nice texture. It does look like snow on the anemone once it dries, and I just think that looks really pretty. So I'm just going to continue to add some more of that white paint and get that on there. And once that's dry, I'll be ready to move on to my next step. So that's all ready to go. Really loving how that's looking. Now I'm going to use the Joy buzzword and the Joy stamp set to create my sentiment. I love this set. You can see all of the coordinating little sentiments that go along with the word joy. And I'm not going to stamp the large word joy. I am going to die cut that with the buzzword. I've die cut it out 3 times, once with some teal cardstock and twice out of white. And I'm going to go ahead and layer these different layers together with a little bit of liquid adhesive. So I'm just poking out all of those pieces that we don't need. And I'm going to take my liquid adhesive, my Honeybee precision tip glue tube, and I'm going to add these layers together. So just adding a little bit of adhesive on there. I don't want too much. I don't want it to ooze out. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm just getting a small amount. This glue from Honeybee is so fantastic. It is definitely my favorite liquid adhesive to use for card making. I reach for it all of the time. I have used up 1 full tube. I'm on my 2nd tube now, and I do really enjoy it. And there's a lot of glue in one of these tubes. They do last for quite a while. So now I think I'm going to add glue on top of that. And then I'm like, wait, no, I don't want glue on top of the blue. I want it on underneath. So I'm going to add liquid adhesive again here to the top of this word joy, and then I will take my teal topper, and that's going to be placed on top, and that's going to be the nice thick 3-layered buzzword for my sentiment for the card front. I'm just going to make sure I have those all together. Just going to pick up the extra glue with my fingers there, and then I'll put the top of the letter joy together, layer that up, get that all glued together, and it will be ready to place onto the top of my card. So I'm just finding those pieces, and I'll get those all glued together. These are really tiny little pieces, but they're not too hard to work with when you have tweezers, or if you have a pickup tool of some sort, that would help you as well. I do find that my Honeybee Precision tweezers are just the right precision tool that I need for this sort of job. And here you can just see I've got those all stuck together now. I'm just making sure I've got that so that it's right. And I am going to, at this point, grab the blue part and add it to that as well. And it'll be all ready to go. Now I'm going to take a little bit of craft foam and I'm going to use that to back my card front to give my card front a little bit of dimension on my card base. I'm just going to add some adhesive to that, stick the card front onto that craft foam, and then I will add some adhesive to the other side of the craft foam and get that stuck down to my card base. One of the really great things about the Honeybee glue tube is that it does allow you a little bit of time to wiggle things around. So I love using that when I'm adding some craft foam to a project, because when you're adding foam adhesive, it grabs right away. But the nice thing about the liquid adhesive is it just gives you a chance to kind of wiggle things around and get them placed into the right spot, which is super awesome. From my perspective, that's huge. I love that. I really like that aspect of the glue. Now this is all ready to go, and I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive to put the joy onto the project. I didn't think it needed any more dimension. I could have added a little bit of foam adhesive on the back, but I just felt like it was definitely bulky enough and stands out enough with those 3 different layers. So I'm just adding a little bit of liquid adhesive onto the back of that piece, and I'll go ahead and add that to that top right area there, which is just a perfect spot for the sentiment. I love the contrast of that darker teal cardstock. I think it really makes the sentiment pop and stand out, which is important on a card front. And so I'm just going to press on that just to make sure that it adheres to that embossing. And then I will go ahead and get the tittle over top of the J stuck down, just using a little bit more of my liquid glue tube there as well. So I'm just using my Marvy Jewel Picker there to help me place the tittle over the J, and that is going to finish that off. Now I did use the sentiment "To the World" from the Joy stamp set. You can see that I have stamped it and heat embossed it in silver. I just thought that was really pretty, a really nice addition to the card. That silver is just kind of like, has a little bit of a wintry feel to it. And I'm going to put a little bit of foam adhesive on the back of this sentiment strip, and I just trimmed that out with my trimmer. And here you can just see I'm going to add that to my word joy, just slightly over to the right a little bit, and I'm okay with it hanging over the edge of my card front, because if you'll notice in the bottom left hand corner, the leaves are hanging over the edge down there, and so that I think that kind of balances it nicely. So you can see that just adds that little bit of extra balance in that way. Now I'm going to use some of the Farm Fresh Holiday Gems. I really love these silver gems and how they just kind of coordinate nicely with the embossing powder I used for that Joy to the World or To the World area. And I'm going to finish off just adding these with my craft pick, and that's going to finish off my card. I have linked up to all of the different products that I used for my project today in the description box below, so make sure you check out those links. And I just really hope you enjoyed this card process today. I think this is kind of a non-traditional looking holiday card that's just really super pretty. It's soft, and yet it's kind of got that snowy holiday feel to it. So I enjoyed making this for you today, friends, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.